An 83-year-old man stands before Judge Caprio for running a red light. Frail hands, silver hair, military bearings still visible despite his age. Judge asks a simple question. "Mr. Hale, can you explain why you were in such a hurry?" The old man doesn't answer with words. Instead, he slowly removes his jacket. Underneath, he's wearing his dress uniform. Army green service uniform, retired lieutenant colonel insignia on the shoulders. But it's what's on his chest that makes the entire courtroom gasp. Tattooed directly over his heart, 24 names. First names, last names, ranks. Each one etched into his skin in precise military font. "These are the men," his voice breaks, "who didn't come home. From my last deployment. I visit their graves every year on this day. I was running late." Judge Caprio freezes. Then slowly, deliberately, he stands, unbuttons his robe, and places his hand over his heart in respect. What happens next becomes the most emotional moment in courtroom history. Because some days, justice takes a back seat to gratitude. Subscribe and stay until the end. You'll need tissues for this one. Thursday morning, 10:15 a.m. The bailiff calls. Case 17,856, Thomas Hale. Violation of traffic control device, red light camera, Memorial Boulevard. An elderly man approaches the podium slowly, but with unmistakable military posture. He's 83 but moves like someone who's spent a lifetime standing at attention. Pressed khaki pants, polished shoes despite their age, a jacket covering what appears to be a formal shirt underneath. Judge Caprio looks up and immediately sees something in this man's eyes. A depth, a weight, a lifetime of experience. "Good morning, sir. Lieutenant Colonel Hale?" "Retired, Your Honor, but yes, sir." His voice is weathered but strong. "Thank you for your service, Colonel. Please, at ease." Judge Caprio uses the formal address instinctively. Some people carry their rank in their bones. "Thank you, Your Honor." "Colonel Hale, you're cited for proceeding through a red light at the intersection of Memorial Boulevard and Veterans Parkway. The camera captured your vehicle, a 1987 Chevrolet Caprice, entering the intersection after the light had turned red. Do you recall this incident?" "I do, Your Honor. I was driving to the Rhode Island Veterans Memorial Cemetery. I was running late and I made a mistake. I saw the light turning yellow and I accelerated instead of stopping. It was wrong. I accept responsibility." His voice is steady, measured. This is a man who's taken responsibility for far heavier things than traffic violations. Judge Caprio notes the date on the citation, November 11th, Veterans Day, and the destination, the cemetery. "Colonel, were you visiting someone at the cemetery?" Thomas's jaw tightens slightly. "Yes, Your Honor, several people. It's an annual tradition. Every November 11th for the past 41 years. 41 years. That's a long time to maintain a tradition." "It's the least I can do, sir." Judge Caprio sees something flicker across the old man's face. Pain, maybe. Or guilt. Or grief that's had 4 decades to settle into his bones but never quite disappeared. "Colonel Hale, can I ask what unit you served with?" "U.S. Army, Your Honor. Multiple deployments, but my last command was in 1983. Operation Urgent Fury, Grenada." The courtroom is quiet. Most people don't remember Grenada. It was a brief military operation, only lasted a few days in the history books. But for the men who were there, it lasted a lifetime. "You were the commanding officer?" "Yes, sir. Company Commander, Charlie Company, 2nd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment." He says it with pride, but there's something else there too. Something that sounds like sorrow. Judge Caprio sets down his pen. "Colonel, the citation indicates you were driving significantly above the speed limit when you entered the intersection. Were you aware of how fast you were going?" "I was, Your Honor. I was doing 53 in a 35 zone. There's no excuse for that. I'm usually very careful, But I looked at my watch and realized I was 20 minutes late, and I couldn't be late. Not today. Not for them. For them? Thomas takes a breath. His hands, which had been steady at his sides in military rest position, begin to tremble slightly. Your Honor, may I show you something? Judge Caprio nods, sensing this is important. Of course. Thomas Hale reaches up with shaking hands and slowly unbuttons his jacket. He's wearing his full Army dress uniform underneath. Army green service uniform, rarely seen anymore. Lieutenant Colonel rank insignia on the shoulders, combat infantry badge, ranger tab, bronze star with V device for valor, Purple Heart. But none of that is what makes the courtroom collectively hold its breath. Across his chest, visible through the white undershirt he's wearing beneath the uniform shirt he's unbuttoned, are names. Tattooed names. 24 of them, arranged in neat columns directly over his heart. The ink is faded, these tattoos are decades old, but each name is still clearly legible. SGT James Morrison. CPL David Chen. PFC Michael Rodriguez. SPC Robert Williams. SGT Anthony Bennett. CPL Kevin O'Brien. The list continues. 24 names total. 24 men. Thomas's voice is barely above a whisper, but in the silent courtroom, everyone hears every word. These are my men, Your Honor. Charlie Company, 2nd Battalion, 75th Rangers. Operation Urgent Fury, Grenada, October 25, 1983. We were tasked with securing Point Salines Airport. We fast-rope from helicopters under heavy fire. His hand moves unconsciously to his chest, touching the names through his shirt. I was the company commander. 143 men under my command. We took fire immediately upon landing. Anti-aircraft fire, small arms, RPGs. It was chaos. Judge Caprio has stood up without realizing it. The entire courtroom is frozen. I made tactical decisions that day. Split my forces to secure multiple objectives simultaneously. I sent 3rd Platoon to the eastern hangar. His finger traces names on his chest. Morrison, Chen, Rodriguez, Williams. They ran into a fortified position we didn't know was there. I sent 2nd Platoon to secure the fuel depot. More names. Bennett, O'Brien, Jackson, Martinez. They took RPG fire. Direct hit on their position. His voice is shaking now, but he continues. 1st Platoon encountered civilians being used as human shields. I ordered them to hold fire and find another approach. But that delay meant they were exposed when... He stops, composes himself. Davis, Thompson, Anderson, and Brooks. 24 men didn't come home with me, Your Honor. 24 men who followed my orders, who trusted my command, who believed I would bring them home safely. A woman in the gallery is crying openly. A man in a Vietnam veteran's cap has his head bowed. After the operation, after the funerals, after the medals they gave me for successful command, he says this with bitter irony. I went to a tattoo artist. I had him put all 24 names on my chest, over my heart, because that's where I carry them. Every single day for 41 years. Every Veterans Day, I visit their graves, all 24 of them. Some are buried here in Rhode Island, some in Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York. I drive to each one. I stand at attention. I salute. I tell them I'm sorry. I tell them they're not forgotten. Thomas's military composure is cracking. Tears are running down his weathered face. This morning, I woke up at 5 a.m. like I do every November 11th. I put on my dress uniform. I planned my route to visit all 24 graves. But my car, my '87 Caprice that I've maintained meticulously because it's the same model I drove the year they died, it wouldn't start. Battery was dead. By the time I got it jumped and running, I was already an hour behind schedule. I was rushing. I wasn't thinking clearly. I saw that light turning yellow and I couldn't be late for them. I've never been late. Not once in 41 years. I couldn't start now. He looks directly at Judge Caprio, tears streaming. So I ran the red light. And I endangered other people on the road. And there's no excuse for that. I tell myself I was hurrying for them, but the truth is, they would be ashamed of me for being reckless, for potentially putting others at risk. I accept whatever penalty you give me, Your Honor. I deserve it. But please understand, I wasn't rushing to a meeting or an appointment. I was rushing to honor men who died because of orders I gave. The courtroom is utterly silent, except for the sound of people crying. Subscribe to Judge Stories if you believe some sacrifices can never be repaid. Judge Frank Caprio stands completely still for 10 seconds. He's staring at those 24 names tattooed on this old soldier's chest, at the purple heart that indicates Thomas himself was wounded, at the bronze star with V device that means he acted with valor under enemy fire, at the face of a man who's carried guilt and grief for 41 years. Then, slowly and deliberately, Judge Caprio does something he's never done in over 30 years on the bench. He reaches up and begins unbuttoning his judicial robe. The bailiff looks confused. The clerk's eyes widen. This is unprecedented. Judge Caprio removes his robe completely, folds it carefully, and sets it on his chair. He's wearing a simple suit underneath. He steps down from the bench, abandoning the elevated position that symbolizes judicial authority, and walks to stand directly in front of Thomas Hale. He places his right hand over his heart. Then he snaps to attention and renders a full salute to the retired lieutenant colonel. Thomas is stunned. His military instinct kicks in automatically. He straightens, despite his age, and returns the salute with precision that hasn't faded in 41 years. They hold the salute for 5 full seconds. 2 men standing at attention. 1 honoring sacrifice. 1 who made it. Judge Caprio lowers his hand. His voice is thick with emotion. Colonel Hale, I will not, issue a citation to a man who carries 24 names over his heart, who has spent 41 years visiting the graves of men he commanded, who broke a traffic law because he refused to be late to honor fallen soldiers. Thomas starts to speak. Your Honor, that's not— Let me finish, Colonel. What you did, running that red light, was dangerous. In any other circumstance, I would uphold this citation without hesitation. But today is not any other circumstance. Judge Caprio gestures to the date on the citation. November 11th, Veterans Day. You were on your way to honor 24 men who died in service to this country. Men who followed your orders into combat. Men whose names you literally carry on your body so you never forget them. Colonel, my father served in World War II. He came home, but many of his friends didn't. He never talked much about the war, but I remember one thing he said. The ones who came home carry the ones who didn't. We carry them in here, and he'd point to his heart, every single day. Judge Caprio's voice breaks slightly. You've been carrying 24 men for 41 years. You visit their graves. You wear their names. You live with decisions you made in combat. Decisions that saved many lives but cost 24 others. I'm not qualified to judge that, Colonel. No one is. You made impossible choices in impossible circumstances. You led men in combat. You brought 119 soldiers home safely. And you've honored the 24 who didn't make it, every single day since. Thomas is openly weeping now. So are at least a dozen people in the courtroom. This citation is dismissed. Completely. No fine, no points, no record. But, Your Honor, Thomas tries to protest. Colonel, I'm not finished. I'm also issuing a formal court commendation for your service. This courtroom, this city, this state, we owe you more than we can ever repay. Dismissing a traffic citation is the absolute least I can do. Judge Caprio turns to address the courtroom. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just witnessed something extraordinary. This man, Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Hale, United States Army, retired, has shown us what true service looks like, what sacrifice means, what it costs to command men in war. He turns back to Thomas. Colonel, I have one request, not as a judge, but as a citizen, as a son of a veteran, as someone who's never served, but who's grateful beyond words to those who have. Anything, Your Honor. Next Veterans Day, when you visit those 24 graves, I would like to accompany you, if you'll have me. I'd like to pay my respects to the men whose names you carry. Thomas breaks down completely, can't even speak, just nods vigorously.
After the hearing, Thomas stands in the courtroom, still crying, still processing what just happened. People approach him. A Vietnam veteran shakes his hand wordlessly. A young woman whose grandfather served in Grenada thanks him through tears. An active-duty soldier in uniform salutes him. An elderly man in the back stands. Your Honor, may I speak? Judge Caprio nods. I'm Frank Morrison. My son James was one of the 24. Sergeant James Morrison. He's the first name on Colonel Hale's chest. The courtroom goes completely silent. Thomas turns, sees Frank, and his face crumples. Mr. Morrison, I'm so sorry. Frank walks forward, tears streaming down his face. Colonel, my son wrote me letters from training. He wrote about you. He said you were the best commander he'd ever served under, that you cared about your men, that you'd do anything to bring them home safely. I failed. You didn't fail. You made impossible decisions in combat. James knew the risks. He chose to serve. He was proud to serve under you. And Colonel, I need you to know something. Frank reaches out and touches his son's name on Thomas's chest. Every Veterans Day, I visit James's grave, and every year there are fresh flowers already there. From you. For 41 years, you've placed flowers on my son's grave before I arrive. You've never forgotten him. Both men are sobbing now. Frank embraces Thomas. Thank you for carrying him. Thank you for remembering. Thank you for visiting. You didn't have to do that, but you did. For 41 years, Judge Caprio is wiping his eyes. The bailiff is crying. The entire courtroom is emotional. A woman stands. I'm Maria Chen. My husband David. Corporal David Chen. He's the second name. Colonel, I remarried eventually. I have grandchildren now. But I've never forgotten David. And I've never forgotten that every year, his grave has flowers on Veterans Day. I didn't know until today that it was you. Another person stands. Robert Williams was my brother. Thank you, Colonel. Another. Anthony Bennett was my uncle. We know about the flowers. Thank you. One by one, family members of the fallen stand. Not all 24. Some families have passed, some have moved away. But 7 families are in the courtroom. 7 families who've received flowers on their loved ones' graves for 41 years and never knew who left them. Thomas is surrounded by people hugging him, thanking him, crying with him. Judge Caprio steps down again. Colonel, your car battery died this morning. How are you getting to the cemeteries? I have my route planned, Your Honor. I'll drive straight from here. I'm already behind schedule, but I'll visit all 24 before nightfall. No, you won't. Not alone. Judge Caprio pulls out his phone, starts making calls. Within 20 minutes, something extraordinary happens. 15 cars show up at the courthouse. Veterans, active duty soldiers, family members of the fallen, police officers wanting to escort, Judge Caprio himself. Colonel Hale, we're going with you. All 24 graves. You've done this alone for 41 years. Not today. Today you have company. The convoy forms. 15 cars following Thomas's 1987 Caprice. Police escort with lights. American flags on several vehicles. They visit all 24 graves. At each one, Thomas stands at attention in his dress uniform and salutes. Judge Caprio and everyone else stand in respectful silence. At James Morrison's grave, Frank Morrison stands beside Thomas, both men saluting his son together. The local news covers it. The story goes viral. Comments flood in from around the world. 83-year-old colonel carries 24 names on his chest for 41 years. Judge removes his robe and salutes veteran. This is what honor looks like. I'm crying at my desk. The next day, the Providence Veterans Center receives $47,000 in donations with notes like, "In honor of Colonel Hale and the 24. For those who didn't come home. Thank you for remembering." 1 month later, a memorial is erected at Point Salines Airport in Grenada. 24 names. The exact names from Thomas's chest. The dedication plaque reads, "In memory of those who fell October 25, 1983, never forgotten by their commander or their country." 1 year later, on the next Veterans Day, Judge Caprio keeps his promise. He accompanies Thomas to all 24 graves. So do 15 other people. It becomes an annual tradition. Thomas is never alone again. 3 years later, at age 86, Thomas Hale passes away peacefully. His funeral is attended by hundreds. The 24 families are there. Judge Caprio delivers a eulogy. Thomas is buried in full military honors at Rhode Island Veterans Memorial Cemetery. His grave is placed in a special location, surrounded by the graves of 7 of his 24 men who are buried there. Even in death, he's with them. His headstone is simple. LTC Thomas Hale, U.S. Army, 1940 to 2023. He carried them home. Every Veterans Day, 24 graves receive flowers. Now they come from Judge Caprio, from the families, from strangers who heard the story. Thomas's tradition continues. And on his grave, someone always leaves a note. The 24s are still remembered. Rest easy, Colonel. You can finally rest. Subscribe to Judge Stories now for moments when justice bows to sacrifice and when one old soldier teaches us what it means to never forget.
Thomas Hale walked into court expecting a fine. He left with his citation dismissed, his sacrifice honored, and a judge who removed his robe to salute him. Judge Caprio proved that some days the law takes a back seat to gratitude. That some traffic violations don't deserve punishment, they deserve understanding. And that a man who carries 24 names on his chest for 41 years has paid enough. This is what happens when a judge sees beyond the citation to the person standing before him. When an 83-year-old soldier still honors men who died 4 decades ago. And when one courtroom becomes a place where grief, guilt, honor, and gratitude all meet. Thomas taught us that service doesn't end when you take off the uniform, that command means carrying your men forever, the ones who came home and the ones who didn't. And that some debts can never be repaid, only honored. Comment below. Share this if you believe we can never thank veterans enough.